Good morning. Happy Sunday. I've got some crazy exciting news right now. I'm getting a blast setup today. No time to waste. Come with me and I'll tell you more about it. So this 60-gallon, 3-horsepower Porter cable air compressor pops up late Saturday night on Facebook Marketplace for $250. I looked it up online. It's about a $1,300 air compressor, so I immediately messaged the guy and said I would take it. It was conveniently located in Three Forks, which is only about a half hour from my house, so I picked it up Sunday morning, reorganized the garage, and then manhandled this beast out of my truck and into its new home with the help of my roommate Reed. It's so funny the things that get you excited as you get older. I just bought a big ol' air compressor. I also need to do some research because I've literally never used a high voltage outlet. This plug looks like this, and I've got an outlet in my garage that looks like that. Those don't match up. But I'm stoked, big things are happening. I started prepping the side of the garage where the blast setup would live, first by adding a couple more lights to make it a little bit more comfortable to work over there. Now that I finally have an air compressor capable of blasting in my garage, it was time to get an actual blast setup. So I went to trusty Harbor Freight and bought their blast cabinet for $229. If you're wondering, at a leisurely pace and consuming 3-ish whiskey drinks, the Harbor Freight blast cabinet takes around 4 hours to assemble. The thing is not quick. That said, it's here, it's looking good. I can absolutely see why the recommended mods are recommended. This thing is gonna need some more lighting. That's it for tonight. It's 1:30 in the morning. I'm going to bed. Look at that though. Neither of those were here this morning. That's a successful Sunday. So after lots of research and consulting the internet, I just swapped the power cable for the compressor to a 4-prong plug. All this electrical stuff is a little overwhelming to me and a little bit nerve-wracking because I have no professional experience, but the internet's a great resource. Let's see if we start a fire. Oh boy, moment of truth. This thing's actually really quiet. I'm very impressed. I thought this was gonna be so much louder than it is. Oh my God, it works. Let's go. The blast setup is almost complete. I've been working on a couple modifications. I'm waiting on some lighting and some blast media in the mail to finish it up. In the meantime, I have a lot of parts that need to be prepped for blasting. Let's get after it, shall we? So for the wheels, I will be reusing the stock hubs and rotors, but other than that, everything is getting replaced. These rims were super damaged, both of them were cracked and bent. For the rear wheel, I'll be going from a 19-inch to an 18-inch for this Enduro build, so I couldn't use that rim or spokes anyway. In general, when I build wheels, I usually replace the spokes and nipples. It is possible to get the old spokes off and cleaned up, but it really is a total pain. Spokes tend to seize over the years, and it can take an immense amount of time to get them cleaned up and functional again. So again, the rear spokes had to be swapped anyway, and cutting the wheels apart with the bolt cutters takes all of 30 seconds. Disassembling these wheels would have taken me hours. Moving on to the linkage, I had planned on removing and replacing the bearings, but upon inspection, the bearings in the linkage were actually perfect. So I don't know if they had been replaced recently or if they just weren't abused throughout their life. I moved on to fully disassembling the Swingarm, and I know this thing is going to need some time with prime wheels. It's definitely got some gnarly gouges throughout it, but I think we'll be able to get them out. The bearings in the linkage knuckle and the bearings in the Swingarm look pretty much exactly like the ones in the linkage arm and do not need to be replaced, so that is great news. This might actually be the first project bike I've worked on that all of those bearings weren't completely clapped out. I removed the Swingarm graphics using a heat gun and a razor blade and then moved on to the triple clamps. The lower steering bearing did give me a hell of a time. This one had pretty much no lip on the inner race, so I was forced to cut a slot in it with the Dremel to loosen it up and then was finally able to beat it off of the steering stem. I shifted my attention to the inner clutch cover and removed the water pump. Not surprisingly, the water pump shaft was worn out, as is very common on these YZs, so I will be replacing that. I transitioned to the left case half, which still had the 2 clutch shaft bearings as well as 1 transmission bearing to remove. The first clutch shaft bearing gave me a hell of a time, as you can see here. Jesus mother. Even using heat, the race of the bearing started collapsing on itself, and I thought it might be a lost cause until I blasted it with the torch one more time and finally got it out. The second one was still a little bit of a struggle, but nowhere near the difficulty of the first. This one only took me a few minutes. Bang, bang! I was just about in the clear as I only had 1 bearing to go, and this transmission bearing gave me the absolute time of my life. I spent well over an hour beating it with the slide hammer, torching it. I even put it in the snow to try and freeze the bearing and then expand it again with heat to no avail. I'm going to degrease it and clean it up with everything else and then try baking it to get that bearing out. I've struggled with transmission bearings before, but this one might take the cake. So using an old Igloo cooler, I made myself a makeshift parts washer using some super heavy duty degreaser and water mixed 20-to-1. I tossed all these freshly disassembled parts in it to soak overnight to make my life a little bit easier. The final item on my to-do list for today was to fully disassemble the shock and get that shock body prepped for blasting and Cerakoting. Beyond struggling a little bit to get the clips removed, overall, disassembly of a shock is a pretty straightforward process, and it only took me around 20 or 30 minutes. I removed the shim stack by first sliding it over a flat blade screwdriver and then slipping a zip tie through to make sure that everything maintains the proper order and I don't have to worry about sorting shims when I reassemble the shock. After spending an appropriate amount of time using the shock shaft as a lightsaber and then a wand, I removed the lower shock bearing and then celebrated my successes from the day with a little dancing in the garage. So I started out my Wednesday by busting out the bench buffer with my coarse Prime MX cleaning wheel, and I used that to remove all of the casting lines from the different components that need to be sandblasted and Cerakoted. If you want to pick up a set of these wheels for yourself, I will have a link on screen and in the description. I'm always blown away at how well the chain guide cleans up. This thing went from having some seriously deep pits and scratches to looking practically brand new. The rest of the components look pretty gorgeous without the casting lines as well, and I cannot wait to get them blasted and Cerakoted. Alright guys, a little YZ progress report here. Remember, when this bike is finished, one of you is taking it home. You can tap the link in the description to get yourself entered. At the time of filming this, there's only 21 entries, so your odds of winning are insanely high. Got a beautiful assortment of parts here on the bench, the brakes and exhaust that we finished up in the last two videos, a 2023 YZ300 seat so that we can do the 2023 upgrade, a fresh skid plate with linkage protection from AXP. I also have a chain guide from AXP, but this actually does not fit the 2005 Swingarm. So if anyone watching this rides a Yamaha from 2007 to 2022 with the following models listed on screen, and you've got a worn out chain guide, leave a comment below. I will pick a winner to win this brand new AXP Racing chain guide. Got some brand new Tusk rims along with some fresh spokes with those blue anodized nipples. Guys, I cannot wait to get blasting and Cerakoting in the next video. I'm actually leaving next week to head down to Arizona for Christmas with my family, and then my dad, my brother, and I, and a few of my dad's friends are heading to Vietnam to ride motorcycles for 2 weeks. So that's gonna be an epic trip that I'm really excited about, and I'll do my best to get some sweet footage to show you guys. So that said, the uploads will slow down for about a month, but you best believe as soon as I get back, progress will continue on the YZ300. And maybe you'll finally get to see the snowmobile run in 2023. I hope everyone has a wonderful holiday season. Don't forget to click that like button if you enjoyed this video, subscribe to the channel, and get yourself entered in the YZ300 giveaway.